Today in class, we're going to be getting into part 4 of why we are fat. I like to start these calls off. We have North Carolina, Canada in the house, South California, and I think maybe Boise in the house today. And we're going to be talking about a post that was done on social media recently, but I always like to start off by looking at calories. And if we had to take a guess, how many calories do you think we have in this loaded baked potato, a burger, and this beer? This is one of the issues when your clients track your food without photos. Because your client, and we've gone over food logs before, their cheat meal was a burger, potato, and a beer. So what is that? I mean, this burger right here, there's bacon on there. You can see that there's a sauce, and that sauce isn't going to be low-calorie ranch. It's going to be the most beautiful tasting, wonderful tasting, mayonnaise-backed sauce. It has tons of calories. And then you're gonna have a loaded baked potato, and that just looks like as creamy as can be. That looks magical. And a beer, well, what is a beer? Is it a light beer? Is it an ale? That's a 24 plus ounce beer right there. How do you know? Because I've had numerous ones. So that beer right there is at least 400 calories. It could be as high as 600. The burger, if I had to make a good guesstimate, I'd say between 1,000 to 1,200. The bun in itself is gonna be 300. 80% cut beef would be 220 to 300. If it's 4 ounces, it's probably closer to 6 to 8, so double that. 2-3 slices of bacon, you're adding on another 200-300 calories there. 300 to 400 calories for the sauce. This loaded cluster of yumminess is at least 600-700 calories. So your client documents, oh, I only had 770 calories. It aligned with my 1,200 calorie goal. I don't know why I'm losing fat. It is because of hormones. It's because of whatever it may be. And that's obviously not the case. I want to play for you a clip from an influencer. We don't need to, call her out and look at her Instagram page, but this is someone who has 300,000 followers, and she claims to be a weight loss expert. Let's see what she has to say, and let's have a class discussion around it.
Unless you've been over 200 pounds and successfully lost the weight, I do not want to hear weight loss advice no matter how much education you have. And it's not that I'm underestimating your education. There's just some things that education cannot teach. The truth about weight loss, as someone that has gone through it 3 times in my 26 years on this planet, is that it is not just physical, it is 99% mental, and you do not know how to coach through that until you have gone through it. If you've never been genuinely overweight, you do not know how it feels to physically hurt from trying to move your body. If you've never been addicted to food, you do not know what it feels like to think about it nonstop 24/7 and not how to break the cycle. If you've never had a chronic condition, you do not know what it feels like to have your body fighting against you 24/7, 365. Yeah, you can pick up a textbook and read on how to help people through this, but you do not know what it physically feels like to go through. And that physical knowing is what helps people. Because the truth is that textbook and reality are very, very different for 99% of people. So no, it's not that I underestimate your education or I don't think that you're good at your job. It's that you just do not know how to resonate and empathize until you go through it.
So that wasn't on speed either. That was just her normal cadence, which was a little aggressive in my opinion. But what are our thoughts? What's going through your mind when you hear that?
It's like saying only a recovering drug user can help someone recover from drugs.
Well, I was going to say it's definitely nuanced. So I can speak about my experience working with you, Chris. You've been fit your whole life. And for me, I grew up going to restaurants all the time, and I learned a lot from you. And while originally it was slow to lose weight, I ended up losing over 35 pounds. And what she says, I can understand why some people would want to learn from someone who's been there before, but that does not mean you can't go to someone who's been fit their whole life. It's really about the law of thermodynamics. There's a lot of mental fortitude that comes with losing weight. One has to be not ready, but to execute the law of thermodynamics in many cases with emotional eating. But yeah, I think that was a little bit unjust what she said, respectfully.
Yeah, and Sarah, you don't know me. You don't know that I was a fat little kid. I had fourth grade, I was a chubby little monster. I had brothers who ridiculed the hell out of me and called me fat ass, and I was definitely not fit my whole life. And it just shows you that we all have our illusions of expectations, whether it is social media or someone saying like that. Like the not necessarily red flags, but the three things that really stuck out to me were 99% of it is mental. The second thing was 3 times that she was trying to lose weight. And the last one when she was talking about chronic disease. So my flag, what really went off was that the latter one, where if a client comes to me and they have chronic disease, I'm not dealing with that. That's not my job as a nutrition coach. That's my community I have and the great RDs and psychologists and physical therapists, professors who I'm going to go to. And that is not the scope of a nutrition coach unless you're an RD. And an RD will even refer out when it comes to some type of eating disorder. And it's great for clickbait, rage bait, as people may say, but it really just simplifies it. And I drive a good 3 hours a day back and forth, and I do a lot of writing. And so, I was taking some notes this morning going over this, and saying fat loss is 99%, it just sounds motivational, but it's not scientifically accurate. Fat loss is not 99% mental. Fat loss is physiological, behavioral, environmental, educational, hormone, sleep, stress, food access, training history, social support, and psychology. Mindset matters. Pardon?
Isn't she just saying that to kind of like make an emotional connection with people?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's a good point to do it. You're going to get a lot of clicks, you're going to get a lot of shares, you're going to get people who are going to agree with you because maybe they went through the medical institute, and as she was saying, they come in with symptoms and they just give them a label and they don't have a solution for that label. So it can be very frustrating because you're not heard as the individual. And then you get frustrated and then you want to point a finger at everyone else. And the last thing that we do is take accountability for it. I would be very curious to see when she was struggling, if she was taking photos of her food. Was she working with a coach? Maybe she was working with, I'm just throwing stereotypes out there, but maybe she was working with an uneducated bikini coach. I've worked with so many bikini competitors who've had a coach that was just completely idiotic, and they gave the individuals inappropriate plans that were out of their scope. So your experience with that coach wasn't lawful, one, but you now are going to classify that as, oh, well, that's not how it's supposed to work. And it's unfortunate because mindset does matter because it influences adherence, but mindset does not override energy balance. And that's what we were discussing earlier. You can be mentally tough and still fail if your plan is unsustainable. Your calories are poorly managed, as I just showed with that photo. Your protein is too low. Your sleep is wrecked. Your hunger is through the roof, and your environment makes consistency nearly impossible. The I lost weight, therefore I am qualified to teach fat loss argument is also very weak. Personal experience is valuable, but personal experience is not the same as professional competence. Losing weight 3 times teaches you what worked for you. And in science, we call that the N1, and that is anecdotal, which has merit. If I'm working with a client who has shoulder pain and I have them do some across the arm static holds for 1 to 2 minutes, and over time their shoulder gets better, great, it helped them get better. It doesn't mean that if you have shoulder pain, this is always the solution, because there's numerous clients I've worked with that we've done static stretching and it didn't work. So what we did was soft tissue and helped them get stronger, and that did work. But then I've had clients who've had shoulder discomfort and the soft tissue and the stretching didn't work. And I've had clients that have had shoulder surgery and it worked. I've had clients that have a shoulder surgery and it didn't work. So we have to look at the whole body of evidence. And unfortunately today, because of social media, she's going to get a higher stance of influence per se because of her following. They're going to look at her and say, wow, you must know what you're talking about. You have 300,000 followers. You've gone through having a child. It's 3 times you've lost weight. It does not automatically teach you metabolism, behavioral change, nutritional periodization, pregnancy, postpartum physiology, eating disorder risk, coaching scope of practice, which I think from what she was saying, she was not abiding by, or how to individualize advice from someone else. That is the difference between a testimony and expertise. A postpartum woman also has a very specific context: sleep disturbances, breastfeeding, pelvic floor recovery, hormones, stress, body image, schedule chaos, medical clearance, all that goes into it. Her experience may be real and powerful, but it should not become a universal rule for everyone else. That's really important to underline there. The most dangerous part of her claim is what's called gatekeeping. And she's saying, you cannot give advice unless you've had my journey. It's very emotionally persuasive, but intellectual lazy. And I think that's the irony there, is that she's saying it's 99% mental, but in fact, her argument is very, very lazy and flawed. By that logic, an oncologist should not be treating cancer unless they had cancer. A physical therapist should not rehab an ACL unless they tore theirs themselves. A registered dietitian could not help with diabetes unless they personally had diabetes. That is obviously very false, but the important thing to understand is empathy matters, so you got to give her credit because she does say that in her post. Experience matters as well, but education, evidence, clinical reasoning, and scope of practice matter too. The better statement should have been, fat loss requires a strong psychological component. Lived experience can help a coach relate to their clients, but effective fat loss coaching should be grounded in evidence, individualized strategy, and an understanding of physiology and behavior change. That is much more accurate. And today's post that I'm going to do is fat loss is not 99% mental. It's 100% multifactorial. And that just goes into our body mass equation that we discuss, where it's not just about calories in and calories out. And that's where we get in trouble today, is we simplify that. It does play a huge role, especially when you have someone who's saying that I can't lose weight, I had 770 calories. Well, I'm sorry, and this is where it's like, I was talking to RD the other day, Mel, and it's like, okay, well, I'm sorry that you're emotionally upset from this, but there is an actual right answer. And people will say things like, well, I respectfully disagree. Can you imagine someone saying that on a stage in front of thousands of people, saying, I respectfully disagree that 1 + 1 is 2. I disagree with that. No, you're fucking wrong. And you don't have whether it's the cognitive abilities to recognize that, if it's disillusion, if it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, that is not right. And so for someone to say that it's all 99% mental, yeah, David Goggins is going to say that. That guy's an absolute mental head case in a way that is, he can go out there and lose 50 pounds in a month. But for him to put that same disposition on someone who doesn't have the same environmental factors, social aspects, genetic parts, that's not fair to say. And so that's why when we talk about our flow as a nutrition coach, you have the metabolic awareness, your behavioral augmentation, longevity, integration with those 3 phases. This is a huge part of it. I'm not telling you have to count calories for the rest of your life. I'm not telling you that you have to weigh out everything. But have you ever done that? And I think it's really important to look at other professions, because it would be like saying, if you want to become a millionaire, you need to take advice from a millionaire. Do we think that's a flawed statement within reason? If you want to become a millionaire, you need to take advice. You need to take advice from millionaires. Because what about the trust fund baby who got all this money from their parents? They're a millionaire. Are you going to want to listen to their advice? What about the individual who just won the lotto? They're, $1.1 billion. They have all the money in the world now. Let me tell you on how I got all this. No, it was by luck. What if it was someone who was a gambler, a degenerate gambler? If you haven't watched the Cocaine Cowboy one on USC, there's something from Robin Hood or something, one of the guys. He's a degenerate gambler, but he had all this money. Are you going to take advice from him on how to save and grow your finances? Absolutely not. You want to go to that professional. That professional may, in fact, not be a millionaire, but they're managing billions of dollars. When I worked for Bank of America, I oversaw $100 million within my portfolio. I wasn't a millionaire, but when I would talk to people on the phone, I would go over their accounts and say, this isn't a smart choice. You have $500,000 in a savings account yielding 0.05%. Let's put it into the CD over here, which can at least get you 4 or 5 at the time. That's good advice. I'm not a millionaire, so that millionaire shouldn't be taking my advice? Absolutely not. And so when it comes to weight loss, it really comes down to what Mel and I have talked about numerous times. And that conversation is, the difficult part about nutrition is that everyone eats, therefore everyone has an opinion. And we can't just sweep under the table those that are struggling with the fact that they can't lose weight, because There is a huge psychological part of it, but there's also a social part. And there's an influence part of your environment as well. So emotion leading, stress, boredom, sadness, food as a coping mechanism, depression, anxiety links, social self-esteem, body image issues. I may not have body image issues, but they may. And so if I can't get my lens off, I'm going to see them as a weirdo, or vice versa. And so it's important to look at it with this veil of ignorance and always look at how can I better serve this client in front of me. And as a nutrition coach, if you have a team, you're set up for success. And what a lot of people do is they take a PN1 or a nasm CNC. They don't understand what they just read. They're now just giving you their N1, their anecdotes that I went through carnivore. I had a very bad gut. I had a lot of bad stress. I had all these things going on, but they're cherry picking what they tell you. They're not telling you that they had body image issues. They're not telling you that they had an eating disorder. They may not even known they had an eating disorder until 5 years later and they sought out the right counseling. So the exciting thing about your journey as a nutrition coach is who can you get on your team to better serve your clients? Because you're going to potentially come across someone who's going to say something like, I don't want to work with you, Chris, because you haven't gone through my journey. I'm 300 pounds. I want to lose 100 pounds. You've never done that. But I've helped people do it before. And I understand that you're frustrated right now. And I'm not simplifying it by just saying, oh, you're lazy and you got to eat less and move more. There's a lot that goes into it. There's your social factors. There's who you're surrounding yourself with. Because there could be someone who you surround yourself that has gone through this transformation and you're just motivated by them. And they tell you to start taking a supplement in the morning, not realizing the psychological aspects that go behind taking supplements. If you take creatine every morning, you're telling yourself that you are going to lead a better day. Because does creatine have a negative connotation or a positive connotation? Creatine is positive. I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to be able to do more in the gym. It's good for my brain. It's all these positive things. I just took a shot of positivity. So now my behavior is going to change because when I'm at work and I have a luncheon and this is all brought to us, everyone else is drinking, everyone's eating their burgers, I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to make a better decision today. I'm not going to eat this burger because I know it's probably 1,000 calories. I'm not going to have this loaded baked potato because it's also probably close to 1,000 calories. And I'm not going to have this beer. I'm going to go for an athletic beer that has 50 calories. I'm going to eat just the meat. And I'm going to have a salad on the side with no dressing. I made that choice because of what I was doing earlier. So then I feel better and my gut health improves, my mindset improves. My positivity is contagious. I get a promotion at work. And I'm going to accredit all this to the fact that I'm carnivore, or the fact that I'm doing fasting, or whatever the diet psychological things that I'm subscribing to. So the takeaway from this is there's a lot that goes into it. And especially when it comes to any signs of behavioral stuff that needs to be addressed from an actual expert, you need to refer that out. You're obviously, and in my opinion, you're not going to see much with anorexia because of the psychological issues that are associated with it. You're not going to have someone who's anorexic come to you asking for nutrition and exercise advice. Usually they're going to be doing that by themselves. But those individuals need psychological counseling. If you have some type of eating disorder, you need to work with an RD who that's their specialty, not with a nutrition coach who's helped a bunch of people lose weight by counting calories. So I'm not saying everyone should count calories, because if you have an eating disorder and you did that in the past and it helped create that, or maybe you had a bad experience, your suggestions can now be harmful. That's why that intake form is so important to learn. Where are they at? Where do they want to be? What have they tried? What have they found to be successful? What wasn't successful? Have you had any negative interactions with people online or coaches? When was the last time you worked with a coach who has an RD and a psychologist on their team? That's how I trump that card where people say, well, you haven't done that. You haven't experienced what I have. You've always been fit. Well, wouldn't you rather work with someone who knows how to get to the top of Mount Everest and they don't have to fail and kill a bunch of people on their crew in the meantime. No, you want the person who has that proven record. And so it's not to knock her. I think it's a great conversation to have of what the quote unquote competition is like, because I'd be willing to bet my belt buckle that she doesn't have an RD on her team. I'd be willing to bet she doesn't have a psychologist who she could work with. And I could be wrong, but statistically speaking, I would be very confident in that bet that she's using all of her anecdotes and it trumps everything else. So that's why we take a look at the body mass equation. The foundation, the behavioral, the environmental factors, the mindset, the habits, that stuff is the most important. Calories in, calories out, that is the law. The first law of thermodynamics, we've done a call on that. We've done a call on what a calorie is. It's a unit of measurement. We can't say that, I respectfully disagree, 1 + 1, I think it's 14. No, I'm sorry. That's the law of thermodynamics. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. And if you are in fact eating a certain amount of calories and you're not losing weight, it's because you're not eating that amount of calories. There are a small few that may have some type of genetic or metabolic disease, but I love working with people who have metabolic disease. And I've had people in class and they said, well, Chris, I have a thyroid issue. And I said, awesome. And this girl looked at me and she said, why is that awesome? I said, because you're working with a doctor. And she said, no, well, I'm actually, I self-diagnosed. You don't have a metabolic disease. It would be like me saying that I'm overweight, I have diabetes. Oh, that's awesome. So you went to the doc, you got your blood drawn, your glucose resting levels are at 120 plus? No. I know. Sorry, you don't know. You're making that assumption. And the beauty, but also the folly of access to education, I wouldn't say education, information with AI and all this stuff, we will have a tendency to self-diagnose. Calories in, calories out absolutely plays a role. And if you aren't eating enough, when you look at the energy equation, your NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, will absolutely go down. So when you started here, you are, say, consuming 1,800 calories, but your body adapts to that, adaptive thermogenesis. And also the psychology of that is really important because, again, going back to the supplementation and the positive things that you're putting into your body. Well, when you've had a hard day at work, and I've had clients that tell me that their bosses will call them, idiots and dumb fucks, and you're a pile of shit, you fat ass. They're saying stuff that is just asinine. Imagine the emotional baggage that you take when you go home. I don't know about you. I had this one client that really stuck out at me. I was doing a nutritional consultation with her, and I looked at her alcohol consumption, and she says she has a bottle of wine a night. What would be the simple recommendation that you're going to do as a generic influencer? What are we going to say? Alcohol's bad. Take the wine out. That's why you're overweight. You're being lazy. You need to be stronger. I'm not saying alcohol is good. It's a terrible coping mechanism. But she, in fact, was a psychologist, and she worked in prisons, and she worked specifically with inmates who were sentenced to life who molested young kids. And she would hear the most horrific stories. So when she would go home, I'm getting goosebumps recalling those conversations. She said, that was my way of debriefing. I'm sitting across a psychopath who's smiling, talking about molesting and mutilating kids. That's a lot of emotional baggage. So imagine going to a coach who just says, oh, it's calories in, calories out. You're consuming too much wine, take it out, you're good. Don't drink, alcohol's bad. I'm putting myself on this pedestal, I'm better than you. So what do you think that relationship's gonna be like? Do you think that client's gonna continue to tell me when they have wine? Absolutely not. They're gonna be ashamed of themselves. What they're experiencing is weakness. Going to the bottle is weakness. That's not a good thing, I'm not saying that, but maybe you as a psychologist need to seek help from another psychologist. How often do you go to a shrink? And then there's the irony there, right? Because that's one of the questions I have with trainers who are struggling. How often are you getting trained by a trainer? Oh, we have group workouts every, quarter or so. So you're telling your clients that they need to be more accountable by coming to you and you train them regularly, but you don't even have a coach. When was the last time you went to a weekend seminar and learned from other professionals? That 1%. Oh, it's too expensive. I don't have the money right now. I'm just, I have all these financial worries. Have you ever made a poor financial decision in the past? Well, last night I was actually watching that Argentina game, and I'm a big Argentina fan, and we were getting our asses kicked by Egypt, and we started winning, so I bought the whole bar of fucking shots. My bar tab was $900. Yeah, but you put it on your credit card. You didn't have the money for that. I know, oh shit, rent's gonna be tough this month. But at the moment, you felt like that was a good decision. So we have all these times in our life where we make choices that may not align with our nutritional health, our psychological, physical health, financial health, but we still make those decisions. So if you imagine how overwhelming it would be if you try to help a client with nutrition during a workout session. You're trying to address all of these factors. Oh, how's your sleep today, by the way? Let's talk about sleep. Oh, stress. Oh, you work with pedophiles. Oh, great. Let's talk about that during the workout. And how's your metabolic disease going? Oh, yeah, genetics. Let's talk about that. Oh, and your hormones. Oh, by the way, get back and set a PR right now. It's too overwhelming. How do people learn best when it comes to memorization of, the 17 muscles of the shoulder? I guarantee everyone in here broke it up in a way that works for their mind. I'm gonna start with the rotator cuff muscles. Okay, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, subscapularis. And I'm just gonna regurgitate that, learn the proper pronunciation, find out where it is on the body. Maybe I get a coloring pad, and I get those 4 down, and then I move to the next 5. Then I move to the next 4, then I check off all 17. Imagine if I try to learn 100 new muscles in one day. It's overwhelming. So as nutrition coaches, we owe it to our clients to draw that line. I understand you want to lose weight. Weight loss is 90% nutrition. Abs are made in the kitchen. And that's exactly why, as a trainer, I'm going to train you to hold you accountable for your workouts. Once you are consistent with your workouts, we'll start talking about nutrition. In the meantime, eat more protein that's lean within reason to the calories that you think you're consuming. Eat more fruits and vegetables because we're not getting nearly enough of fiber. Listen to the fiber podcast. Listen to the fiber calls that we have with RDs and the importance of fiber. Men should be getting close to 40, women closer to 30. Your clients are on average, how many grams of fiber in this right here? Beer, no, unfortunately there's no fiber in beer. Maybe 1 from the bread. Bacon, tomato, no. To pickle, again, trace amounts there. Let's just say 2 for this. Baked potato, are you eating the skin? It's more of a starch, not a ton of fiber, maybe a couple. So you're getting maybe 4 grams here. And what'd you have for breakfast? Well, I had a Starbucks sandwich, another gram, cool. How many pieces of fruits and vegetables did you have today? Oh, I had jelly beans. Excuse me? Isn't that a fruit? Yeah, nope, it's not. I don't know where you got that from. I've had clients tell me that they thought that Starburst was a fruit because it had fructose in it, high fructose corn syrup. So imagine trying to educate that individual who thinks that a Starburst is fruit. I believe in the United States they've now I believe in the States they've classified pizza as a vegetable because of the sauce. So it's like we're grabbing at straws here, and it's like, okay, we want to get into the complexity of where you're at, but you don't even know how much fiber you're getting per day. You don't know how much protein. You don't know how many calories you're consuming. And you hear all this stuff on social media. Well, fiber is bad for you. It's not natural. If it was good for you, then why would you poop it out? That's simplifying the complexities behind physiology. So I love nutrition, but I set clear expectations with my clients. If you train, you commit to 2 times per week. Once you hit 8 consecutive sessions, you've now shown me you're ready for nutrition. Because nutrition is significantly more challenging because you're probably eating between 3 to 5 times per day. The average person who's overweight and struggling to keep that weight off, they consume 3.2 snacks per day. 3.2 snacks. The average snack, a couple hundred calories, almost 1,000 calories in snacks. Do you think that snack is high in fiber? Imagine being in this situation. You're a lawyer. You just got brought on to a new firm. The firm is multi-billionaire, rich in private equity. And they have a cafeteria with amazing food that you get full access to for breakfast and lunch? Are you going to go spend your hard-earned money on groceries? Or are you going to have what they offer for breakfast? Or are you going to have what they offer for lunch? You're going to do that. And my client said to me, and this was great because she was talking about nutrition, and I thought of this photo right here. Because she said, oh, she had a little piece of this cauliflower pesto pasta. My mind goes, that's a little piece. Cauliflower pesto pasta, if you had a bowl of that, that's going to be close to 1,000 calories. But cauliflower, fiber, it's good for you. Pesto has a ton of calories because of the oil bake, or because of the oil back. I'm not saying that's bad, but you don't realize that you just consumed 1,000 calories right there. And you're struggling with your weight loss journey. So again, earn the right to talk about nutrition because it is way more complex. And have little cases like this. Maybe you come up with a quiz. I have a quiz for trainers, and the quiz is, if you're struggling, let's see how you do with these questions. That first question being, do you have an RD or a physical therapist on your team? Dalton, when you were at the West Hollywood Equinox, how many trainers at that location had a physical therapist and an RD who they could reach out to regularly? 0. And I've interviewed over 500 trainers at Lifetime, less than 1%. And the ones that did were actually in Canada, because at that Lifetime where Greg's going to be working, they have physical therapists and RDs on staff. So that's almost like cheating in my opinion. It's like, okay, well, you're just in a better environment. Second question is, can you tell me the name of the rotator cuff muscles? Can you tell me the name of the quad muscles and the hamstrings? That's simple anatomy. 4 muscles of the quads, I knew that, but I thought it was just quads. No, we have a lateral vastus muscle, we have a medial vastus muscle, we have one that's in between, vastus intermedius and the rectus femoris. Do you know which one's biarticulate? Huh? What does biarticulate mean? Okay, so you don't have a team, you don't know basic anatomy. When was the last time you went to a hands-on learning seminar from someone who's been doing this for 20 years? And it's not just dogma. It's actually backed by science. Like when we have Dr. Farnsworth here, October 23rd, programming around pain from a physical therapist. When was the last time you've done something like that? Dalton, how often did you see trainers go into hands-on learning workshops? So they bring in Strong First, which is an amazing certification. If you have an opportunity to take that, I highly suggest. I know a lot of people on that team. It's essentially descendants from Pavel, who's the godfather of the kettlebell, and an amazing certification. But the gym was paying for it. And so trainers will take that course because it's being provided. Did you know if you work at a physical therapy clinic, as a practitioner, they're going to provide usually $2,500 per year in continuing education? That's just part of your package. Did Equinox give you money to go out there and learn and better yourself as a trainer, Dalton? No. Trainers that have worked at Lifetime? No, they don't get a stipend. The nice thing about Crunch, I think they give you like $300, but it's like, what can you get for $300? You can't go to a seminar. Most seminars are at least $500, closer to $1,000. Ours are $799.
At least it's something.
Yeah, it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. So you don't have a team, you don't know basic anatomy, and you're not learning hands-on. You're just using your anecdote, that N1 from the textbook certification. And then the last question I have is, are you in the best shape of your life? If you can check off those 3 boxes and you're struggling as a trainer, are you in the best shape of your life? Oh, I'm just so stressed out right now, I'm not even exercising. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black. So I use a lot of comparisons between a trainer and nutrition coach because the similarities are fruitful in the sense that I have these conversations with my clients that we're not going to get into nutrition discussions until you can check off these boxes. When was the last time you took photos of your food for 1 week and you sent it to someone for accountability? You're going to get a written food log that is like freaking communism on paper. It looks amazing. But then when you try to implement it, it doesn't work. So the photos are really, really important. What are you giving back to your clients? Meaning when a client signs up with Tori as a nutrition coach, she has systems that she incorporates, talks about sending them a scale so they can start measuring their food. Now you have accountability calls. You have access to an RD. Now with our nutrition certification, you do Vitality Blueprint. So you go and get your blood drawn. When those results come back to me, with my RD and my team, we're going to interpret that more so than a doctor probably ever asked for you, because there's 80 markers that we're checking versus the average 10 or 20. And we're gonna give you a plan that talks about supplementation that's gonna fill that gap for now. That's gonna put you in a better mindset. That's going to fill those nutritional gaps that you're currently not getting, whether if it's fiber or magnesium. You know, we can make those suggestions with a team. What are some questions that we have?